how far away do you think the Cowboys are right now, Eric, from becoming contenders again? Is this a one-off season? Is this multiple off seasons? Like, how much of a foundation do they have of in the NFL, things can turn around quickly?
They totally can turn around quickly. I think the problem is just what the ceiling is for this team. When you talk about them being in contention, you're really just talking about them at best winning a playoff game. I can't see a world anytime soon where I can envision them being a true Final Four kind of team, championship contender, Super Bowl contender. I don't see that at all. But you can snap your fingers and get back to being double digits and in the playoffs in relative no time if you make a couple of strong moves in the offseason. That's all it really takes.
And why do you not see that? Because of their cap management combined with Dak?
Yeah. Just the way they go about business. There's no reason to believe, as long as the people that are the decision makers are still the decision makers, that this thing's going anything further than one single playoff win per season. That they don't prioritize it. And so until that happens, then, I mean, and when it comes to the players, the guys that you've paid, the guys that you're supposed to be building around, those guys also have sucked. And it's like, okay, I understand when I look down and I see 4 guys on the defensive line that weren't even here when we were in Oxnard together. Like, those guys weren't even on the team. It's like, oh, I can at least understand how they're going to get pushed around by the best offensive line / offense really in the league. But when you're paying Dak and Lamb and Steele and Martin and Diggs, and they all are on the basically they're getting posterized, like they're on the wrong end of highlights left and right. I mean, Diggs doesn't even want to tackle anybody. Definitely don't want to tackle Montgomery, but he don't want to tackle anybody. But he also can't cover Jameson Williams. So what are you doing here?
I guess I kind of feel like from 2016 to last year, they were close enough that like one other good player, which is realistic, you got to hit on 1 or 2 other draft picks, and the right coach would get them there.
Yes,
right?
the right coach. Yeah. The right coach. You had to hit all the right notes, and unfortunately, they can't hit that coach note. They haven't proven to do it.
Yeah.
Other than Jimmy, you haven't been able to do it. So I have no reason to believe that the next guy will be that guy.
Yeah, they got to stop paying guys they like. I mean, and injured guys. I think ultimately that swept out the legs from underneath them. Their running back management, some really, disappointing contracts as they played out. And Terrence Steele is as big as it gets right there. But, I do believe in this front office, Brian. But that run where you had Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, Travis Frederick, obviously Ron Leary was in there, Doug Free was in there. Then you put in Lyle Collins, and this thing was just humming, and it created, I think, an identity for this football team as a winning team, a successful team. But you take that away now, and you ask Dak to play with more pressure, and you can't put in running backs and get, solid production from anybody because the offensive line is worse. I just hope they're not deteriorating to the point that they look like the Giants. We've seen teams just not be able to recover after glorious runs. Like, was that supposed to be the golden era, and now we're in a post-golden era reality without 3 Hall of Fame offensive linemen anchoring you? Tyron Smith leaves. Guess what? Yeah. Your offense is significantly worse. You're facing a lot more pressure. Like last year when he stayed healthy for 13 games, maybe that was a temporary reprieve from the slide that we're experiencing, and the trend's not good. Organizationally, the era's not up. Jerry Jones last night, this was very concerning, and it was very humbling. This was a shocker. What action are you going to take? You said that after both Niners losses. You said that after the Packers loss. Here we are. We assume Mike McCarthy's done. I believe Mike McCarthy is done.
Yeah.
But what are you going to change with your process, your desperation level, your urgency, the way you manage the cap, the process of governing a football team? What are you going to change to give yourself a better chance? And I don't know. Brian, you worked for the man. When he talks about things are very humbling, this was a shocker. How could this be a shock to you? I think he's just using words after a loss.
Yeah, I think everybody's kind of using words after losses. Quarterbacks standing up there and talk about practicing harder and stuff like that. But
yeah,
that's kind of where we're at. On my notepad, I wrote down head coach, defensive line, running back, offensive line. It's kind of when you start talking about changes and things like that, you need to think they clearly need a different direction when it comes to if the head coach is going to be the primary play caller, then I need you to be better at your job than what you were yesterday. I kind of felt like, last week there were some things you did I thought were pretty decent. Found a way to get a win. But, you had to be the difference maker. You had to. You probably weren't going to win that game, but you couldn't let your team down the way you did yesterday. And I think the head coach, the quarterback, the offensive line, the defensive line, these are all things, running back, these are all things I have to look at. And now there's a side of me too that, and I know, Eric, you were very, very much on board with this. I wonder if there's these people that wonder about the quarterback. Should they just let that thing ride and just rebuilt the thing from then on, and just said, we're going to let this thing play out, and whatever happens, what happens. We'll deal with the quarterback situation at the end of the year.
There's no doubt in my mind that the best football we're trying to win a Super Bowl decision would have been to let that ride. I feel like
you were consistent about that, Eric. I give you credit. You really were. You said, hey, let this thing ride. And you know what? I wonder now from a team building perspective if that probably was the right situation, because then you can make a clean sweep and try and kind of figure everything out at the end of the year. You say, new head coach, maybe the new head coach gets you the different quarterback. Maybe you get a bridge guy. Maybe if the record's not good enough, it allows you to draft a guy. I'm like I say, I think there's several of these quarterbacks in this draft that are actually going to be probably pretty good pro prospects.
When your team's good, he gets you to the wild card or divisional round. You add Gilmore and Cooks, and you're like, okay, then let's really go for it. You keep Tyron Smith healthy, and it's out. And then when your roster has to get overturned a little bit, it's not even like Baker Mayfield last year with Tampa, where you made the playoffs and, hey, we're coming out of this pretty good. This looks like one of the worst offenses this organization has ever put forward. It's an embarrassment against quality football teams. Like, this is really bad. And, I just wish that the organization looked at things more of a bottom line, that we need to do whatever it takes to get a Super Bowl. And I don't know how you could look at the previous 8 years of Dak's career with the Cowboys and think we're getting closer. You're getting farther away. And now he's less athletic, you know? And the less athletic you are, the better decisions you have to make and the more accurate you need to be with your footballs. And we've known Dak hasn't been accurate since we saw Jason Garrett and David Carr destroy him in passing competitions. And nothing has happened on the football field to change your mind. Like, there's some good throws every now and then. Heck, the throw that he had over the middle to Turpin yesterday was just so right on the money, right in stride, when the game was still somewhat in the balance. And I was like, man, if we can get more of that from Dak here throughout this game, maybe they can go tit for tat for a while. But then the horrible decision, to throw the football away, it just exposes what it's like when he's under a real life amount of pressure. Like, he got to debut in the ultimate quarterback ecosystem. What do they call that? The perfect type of
environment.
Developmental environment for him. It was like, hey, here you go. Here's great protection. Here's a number one wide receiver. Here's a tight end. Here's a slot wide receiver. And, as a result,
running game.
He jumped in and took off and was great, but he's never been able to catch up for all the progress that he's made as a player. He can never get this offense to be as efficient as it was in 2016 when, he was a rookie. And I think that's because he's only going to be as good as his surroundings. And, even that wasn't good enough, in the times when his surroundings were outstanding.